Okay, so today we are going to talk about how the diagnosis changed our marriage. You met my husband from the previous video with the Q&A for the dads. So we thought that we would let you guys know how the diagnosis of Williams syndrome changed our specific marriage. I cannot speak for anybody else. Every relationship is different. So if you're on this path that we are on and you're new to it, this isn't necessarily going to be the exact same journey as far as your spouse goes that it was with us. We met through some mutual friends. We dated for about 2 years, and then he joined the military. We got pregnant with our first child, and then we decided to get married. We were very, very young. We had a lot of challenges from the beginning because of our age. I was 20, he was 19, and we went from dating in high school to getting pregnant after high school to starting a career, moving in together with a child already. We never got to live together without children, so I feel like that was a challenge on its own. Because we were so young and we didn't build our foundation prior to starting our family, I think that the first couple years of our marriage were very difficult, and we can be transparent about that. We are very proud of ourselves for where we are today. We definitely would not be where we are if we didn't go through everything that we went through prior. It was difficult, it was hard. Would I want to do it again? No, but if I knew we would end up where we are today, I guess I would do it again.
Agreed. This is a good background.
Our first duty station was at Camp Pendleton in California. For whatever reason, I feel like our marriage really struggled at the beginning. I think we were both just very young.
Yeah, no, it was a rough start.
Definitely. I would say the first 5 years were pretty difficult. We were still trying to figure out who we were as adults, and then trying to be parents at the same time, and then trying to be spouses to each other. And I feel like we really didn't know life at that point. So I would say after we left California, we got stationed in Newport, Rhode Island, and we were there for 2 years before we got pregnant.
Jay was 6, 7?
No.
How old was Jay?
Jay was 4 when I got pregnant for the second time. Our relationship still wasn't the best. I would say that we were communicating a little bit better, but
let me put that aside.
thank you.
It's ESPN.
I know. I would say our relationship was a little bit better, but we still weren't where we needed to be to build on our family. It just kind of happened, and then I ended up miscarrying really early. I was 7 weeks pregnant. We miscarried. And then at that point, we said, okay, if we're gonna have more children, it needs to probably happen sooner than later, because Jay was turning 5. We wanted our kids to not have that big of a gap, to be able to have more things in common and really grow up with each other. We decided that we were going to try for more children. We ended up getting pregnant pretty quickly again after the first miscarriage, and things were going smoothly. We got past that like 7-8 week part that I thought we would be safe at because previous miscarriage. And we ended up going to our first appointment. I think I was 11 weeks pregnant, and I ended up having a missed miscarriage. The baby stopped growing around 7 weeks. We didn't know it until we went in for our first one, and then they had her intervene, and I ended up miscarrying that one as well. So it was a little discouraging after that. I feel like we definitely went through more of a rough patch around that time, and I'm gonna keep some of our story private, only because I feel like that is something that's between Jordahn and I, and not necessarily everybody else. But we did hit a few more bumpy paths in our journey.
Yeah, that was hard. Lose 2 babies back to back, so difficult.
Yeah, I feel like where that should have been something that kind of pulled us together, it definitely pushed us apart. We don't like going back to that place. That was, I feel like, a pretty difficult time. I swore I was gonna get emotional. That was probably one of the hardest times I feel like in our marriage. Was I felt a lot of guilt for miscarrying. I questioned why us? What did I do? Why wasn't my body taking these pregnancies? So I feel like I definitely pushed him away because I felt like, and I know that this wasn't the truth, but I felt like he might have had those same feelings towards me, and I know that that's not the case. So I was pushing him away, and then he was pushing me away when I was trying to be there. I don't know, it was just a cycle. I felt like it was a cycle of just going farther and farther apart.
Yeah, it was a really difficult time.
But after that, we decided that we were going to try to focus on really building our relationship back up and moving forward, because we did have one child that needed us both and needed us both happy together. So we really, I feel like in that moment, decided that building our family at that time wasn't as important as building the foundation that we had already placed. So we really focused on communicating more. I feel like that's when our communication got a lot better, yeah. I feel like. So after we started building on that, we ended up getting pregnant with Tyler, and that was a whole different ball game on its own. Because I had some previous issues with miscarriages, and because I had preeclampsia when I was pregnant with Jay, he was born 6 weeks early, I was considered high risk with Tyler. But for the most part, I feel like the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. We did do all genetic testing. Nothing came back. Everything came back great. And then Tyler was born, and we noticed a couple things that, looking back, we would say, okay, that makes sense with the Williams syndrome diagnosis. But yeah. He was low birth weight, and Jay, who I said he was 6 weeks early, he was 7 pounds 8 ounces. Tyler was full term, and he was 6 pounds 8 ounces. So that was like our first sign. And then he just wasn't hitting those developmental milestones like he should have. So when we took him to his appointment, they heard the murmur, and you guys know that's kind of how our story dominoed with his diagnosis. And when we got diagnosed, that was another difficult point, but I feel like at that point we were like, we need to do this together.
The diagnosis really brought us close as a family all together, and then especially me and you, like we just kind of like grouped together and bonded. And when Tyler got diagnosed, it was not just his diagnosis, it was our diagnosis as a family. And we just knew moving forward, to be the very best that we could be for Tyler, we had to be the very best family that we could possibly be. He needed that support from his dad, from his mom, from his brother, and he needed the family support all together. And I feel like that's where the turning point for our marriage really happened. Devastating news like this can
pull you apart or bring you together. We have been through those moments where we've had those times where we should have been brought together and we were pulled apart. And I think at that point we were just so tired of that not working that we decided in that moment for Tyler that we needed to just continue to build the solid foundation between the two of us.
Yeah, it really was a turning point. I think we just really started thriving as a family from there. And definitely as a husband and wife, we just kept hitting different milestones after milestones, and now we're here today.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we had to go through something like that to really realize what we needed to do. As a couple, as a husband and wife, I feel like for so long, at least for me, I felt like being a mother had to come first. I had to put all my energy and all my time into really focusing on Jay and then Tyler when he came along. But then when we got diagnosed, I realized that without us being strong together, the kids couldn't live in a healthy household. So that's when I really started to compromise more, to try to communicate more. He always says I'm so like stone cold. I don't show emotion. He can't read me.
Yeah, and I was more focused on like the Marine Corps and just furthering my career, and the diagnosis really made me realize how important family is and how important it is to be there and be in those moments. And then it just went on from there, and it felt like it went on really quickly. Tyler was diagnosed, and then it felt like weeks later, it wasn't that quick, but he had heart surgery, and then it just snowballed from there. So it really, all those together, plus the initial diagnosis, and then all those hitting back to back, really made me realize how important family is and how important it is to be in the moment.
And when you get a diagnosis like we got, where it affects all his organs, his heart, his kidneys, his development, his education, you automatically go to that worst case scenario. And I think for us, that was not somewhere that we wanted to be, but it definitely crossed our minds. And I feel like any parents with that sort of diagnosis, especially when they're sitting there telling you that eventually he is going to need heart surgery, there was no other option but to move forward together and to do it strong for him. He had mentioned Tyler having surgery, and that was another turning point for us as well. I feel like after he got diagnosed, it just kept getting better and better for us. We just kept going through these hardships where we needed to lean on each other.
The heart surgery was rough. The hardest times in my life. There was 2 times, Tyler having heart surgery, and then my dad dying, that I really had to lean on Jacqueline, and she had to lean on me for support. And yeah, it really was, I think even more than the diagnosis, the heart surgery really was a turning point for us and brought us closer and made us better as a couple.
For sure. I feel like the diagnosis was, looking at the whole picture of Tyler's journey so far, the diagnosis was nothing compared to open heart surgery. I don't know if you remember, but when we had to sit in this room prior, and then the anesthesiologist came in, and they gave him something to calm him down so that I could hand him over, and I literally would not let him go. He came in and he said, "Okay, it's time." And I said, "Okay." And I kept hugging him so tightly, and I kept saying, "You're gonna have to take him because I'm not handing him to you. You're just gonna have to rip him out of my arms." And he was just standing there looking at me, and he's standing there looking at me. And I said, "I'm not kidding. You're gonna have to physically take him from me because I'm not giving him to you." And that was probably one of my hardest moments during that whole, we were there 3-4 days. That was pretty hard, but I can't imagine them taking him from me and then him not being there right after, or us being in the place that we were. If we were in the place we were 5 years ago, I don't know how much of myself I would have really given to you in that moment, because our relationship just wasn't the best at the time. And I know that everything happens for a reason, and I really believe that we had to go through everything that we went through prior to get to where we are today as a husband and wife.
Yeah, I mean, all the things that we went through just brought us to where we are now, and I wouldn't want to go through those things again, but I am, I don't want to say happy, but I kind of am, because of where it brought us now. I mean, Ty is doing great, and all of our kids are great, and they're growing, and our relationship is on a whole nother level. You're like my best friend, and it just rolls now smoothly.
Well, I feel like we're more of a partnership now than we were before. I hate this saying, and I hate to put this out there, but I really felt like we were more of friends or roommates prior. And that's sad. But again, we wouldn't be where we are today without those hardships. And that's something that we're very proud of, because we could have just thrown the towel in. We could have said, this sucks, this is not worth it, we can do this separately. But we decided to put in the work, and we worked our asses off to get to where we are. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like a lot of people cherish their relationships, but I cherish ours a little bit more, because it wasn't just handed to us. It wasn't something that just came so natural and so easy. So we just kind of wanted to talk about our journey with the diagnosis and what it did for us. I know that every marriage is not the same. So if you're going through this and your marriage was great prior, it might bring you closer together. And if it was great prior and it's pulling you apart, just continue to keep working. Continue to keep putting forth the effort, because in the end, it's so worth it. If it takes a year, if it takes 6 months, if it takes 5 years, then I'm telling you, it's worth it.
That's extremely important I feel, to work on it, you know, not only for yourselves, but so that you're happy, because that's extremely important in life, but also for the child themselves, to make sure that they're getting 2 happy parents that are fully invested in them and their lives. And
yeah, and we're not perfect now. I'm not saying that, you know, we went through all this hard stuff and we're like the perfect, you know, picture couple, because we definitely aren't. We still have our arguments, we still bicker.
She's annoying.
Yeah. But now it's just much more manageable, and going through the things that we've gone through, we realized that the things that we were fighting about, or the things that we were letting affect our marriage, are not real issues. We have gone through so many more hardships than what we thought were hardships when we were younger, and I really feel like that just plays into where our relationship was headed because of our age. We were so young. We're completely different people now. We've known each other for going on 12 years, 12, 13 years. So we really have grown together.
Yeah, all the stuff we used to fight about, you just realize after going through all this stuff, it's very trivial in nature, and that it's not even honestly worth fighting about. There's bigger fish to fry, as my dad always used to say. So
for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's extremely important for her to be able to get her breaks and take her breathers, basically, because my breathers work. It's not difficult for me to do my job. I've been doing it for a long time now, and it's not that hard. So I feel like that's my break, you know, because kids are difficult.
Well, I feel like that's just your time away from the house.
Yeah.
You know, so not necessarily that it's like easier at work, but it's your time to kind of, I always say, recharge batteries.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel work is easier than dealing with kids.
Yes, I have worked full time, and I will say that working a full-time job is much easier than being a stay-at-home mom. Don't come at me, but that's just my own personal opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I've had the kids for like 2 hours by myself and wanted to pull my hair out, so.
But I think too that it's different for our day-to-day schedules because we do have a child who does go to multiple therapies, and then we have 3 different children who are in 3 different stages of their life, and their schedules are so completely different that I'm all over the place. But to be able to know that I can rely on him if I need it is, I don't think I'd be able to do it without that. Half the time I don't utilize that because I just want to do everything on my own, and I don't want to, you know, bother him or take him away from his work. But I just feel like the routine that we have down works for our family. He kind of does what he has to do on his side, I do what I have to do on our side, and then we come back at the end of the day and we kind of regroup together, and then we do it all over the next day.
Yeah, the end of the day is really important for me, because that's, like, I've been at work all day, so I come home and all the kids really need that attention, but Tyler really needs it, I would say, more than the others.
Not that he needs it more, but he craves it more.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very just, like, he immediately when I come home, that's all he wants to do is hang out with Dad, and so I just really, I cherish those moments, and I enjoyed coming home to that. So yeah, I mean, I love coming home at the end of the day.
And he's like so happy all the time. Like, who wouldn't want to come home to someone who's jumping up and down, so excited to see you?
I know how crazy life can get with these 3 kids.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it makes time go by really fast, which is like good and bad. I know that I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna wish that these days were still crazy and chaotic and hectic, but these days time for me. Hold on. Hello. Whoa! Look at you guys!
There's Auntie.
Hi!
Tell.
So hopefully this video, if you're going through the same thing that we went through, hopefully it gives you a little bit of hope. Hopefully it will motivate you to work on whatever you need to work on. There is no perfect marriage. I feel like there's always room for improvement in any relationship, not just marriage. Final thoughts?
No, I'm all set.
I'd be like, damn, this lady talks a lot and you don't talk at all.
That's why it's a perfect relationship.
Any advice for a husband on supporting their wife through a diagnosis?
I mean, the advice is kind of in the word support. It's just being there, being a shoulder to cry on, just being there, being in the moment. If they need anything, or if, you know, they just need to take a break and breathe sometimes. Whatever it is, just being there and being supportive. Like I said, it's in the word support.
For any advice for a wife who needs to support their husband is the same thing. Just being there. I know it's a lot harder for men to open up. I know for him, he is one of those men that he just wants to make sure that I'm okay. So he will kind of shut off his emotions so that I'm not worried about how he's doing, how he's feeling. He kind of sets his aside so that mine are, you know, up in front, and we take care of mine first. I wish that he wouldn't do that. I wish we could kind of get through it together, but that is something that we are continuing to work on. I feel like just allowing him to let that guard down and my guard down at the same time.
That's my daughter.
So yeah, just the same, just being there to support. Allowing your spouse to work through things the way that they want to work through them, and not forcing and pushing them to think or grieve or act the way that you're acting. Just recognizing that there are different ways to handle things, and you could use that in any relationship. But anyways, so that is us.